Couple of questions. Do you have a great deal of money and you enjoy spending it on things that are completely and utterly bonkers? If you do, then that massive new Mercedes G-Class could be right up your Strasse. Provided your Strasse's wide enough, that is. The G-Class lets everyone know that you're prepared to spend a six-figure sum on something that is basically a posh tractor. And we do mean everyone. It's not like something that looks this brash is going to fade into the background. And that's kind of the point. However, the latest G-Class is designed to be a lot less tractor-like than the previous one, and that car has barely changed since it was first introduced almost 40 years ago. There's a new chassis, a new body, new suspension, new engines, new steering, new gearbox. Basically, pretty much everything is new. The question is, can all that new stuff justify the suitably bonkers price tag of £143,000? We've come to Perpignan in the south of France to find out. Nowhere is all that new stuff more evident than in here. The previous G-Wagon's cabin was still a little bit rough around the edges, even though it was a luxury product. But this one feels plush as. All the materials look and feel absolutely fab. It's absolutely stuffed with luxury equipment, and you've got these two digital screens for your infotainment and your instruments, just like you've got in the E-Class and the S-Class. Not only is it all nice and easy to use, but it gives the whole car a nice widescreen, cutting-edge feel. There's also more room than there was before as well, although considering the size of the car, the space you get is adequate rather than exceptional. There's room for a couple of burly adults in the back, and the boot is massive, although the side hinge tailgate might prove a little bit problematic in tight parking spaces. Now, being a luxury 4x4, pretty rugged one at that, it is no surprise that the G-Wagon does all that off-roading stuff really rather well. Better than ever before, according to Mercedes, and having done a little bit of off-roading this morning, we have no reason whatsoever to dispute that. There are 3 locking differentials, there's more ground clearance, more wading depth, better approach, departure and tilt angles, and all that stuff helps make the G-Wagon pretty unstoppable. It's the car's on-road behaviour that really needs to improve though, because as stylish as it was, the old one was, let's face it, pretty awful to drive. The ride was jarring and jittery and bouncy and generally very uncomfortable, and the handling was borderline scary. It was a bit like riding a wild, unbroken horse. It felt like it was about to throw you off and trample on your face at any given moment. The new car is rather different though, we're happy to report, because it actually goes round corners. The new suspension gives you much tighter body control, the steering's a lot more responsive and direct, it's also nice and weighty, and that means you don't fear for your safety around every bend. No, it still doesn't give you the same level of precision that more conventional fast SUVs do, cars like the Range Rover Sport SVR or the Porsche Cayenne Turbo S, but it is way better than it was before, and there's still a lot of fun to be had in a kind of raucous, unwieldy way. The ride's much better than before as well, because it's not bouncing and thudding the whole time, but there is still quite a bit of patter to be felt over rough surfaces, so it's not as comfortable as the competition. And then there's the engine. The only version available at launch is the G63, and that comes with a 4-litre twin-turbocharged V8 with a rather ludicrous 585 horsepower. It does 0 to 62 in 4.5 seconds, and the top speed is limited to 137. Now, compared to its predecessor, this car weighs about 170 kilos less. That's about 2 of me, but it still weighs 2.5 tons. And when you bear that in mind, the level of performance becomes even more impressive. It's also pretty addictive, and as you can hear, that enormous swell of effortless, barnstorming acceleration is also accompanied by a rather naughty noise. Perhaps most importantly though, the rest of the car now feels like it can handle the power. So it means you can use the power in a way that you just couldn't before. Yes, it only does 21 miles per gallon, and a lot less if you make the most of the muscle on offer. However, your average G-Wag buyer isn't going to give two hoots about that. This car is an enormous two-fingered salute to logic and reason, and efficiency, I'm afraid that includes you. So the G-Wagon is a vast improvement on what went before. Sure, it still has its flaws, but at least now it's not one big, heavy, expensive lump of flaws. It still has a really cool, likeable character as well. So if you're the sort of person to whom this car appeals, and you've got the readies, then this car will suit you better than any G-Class before. If you like this Auto Trader video, then why not hit the subscribe button so that you never miss another one again. Feel free to leave us a comment to tell us what you think of the G-Wagon, and if you're feeling generous, a like never goes amiss either.